Part 3, Best Practices and Next Steps. This brings us to the third and final piece, bringing these systems together. What are best practices and next steps, and how can we add value?
First thing has to be to recognize that you're in a silo and look for ways to break out of it. So, one thing that got my attention, Steve mentioned, was the word transformation. So you could look at transformations. How do I transform security, or how do I transform human resources? But at the end of the day, we're all looking to be business professionals. And, what I'm excited about is digital transformation, which is a conversation in every boardroom at the moment. And a lot of people, when you scratch the surface, they really struggle to know where to start. I think what we have here between the folks represented on this call is a way to say, hey, why don't we do human-centric digital transformation? Why don't we converge? Why don't we break down those silos of that cyber identity, that physical identity, that HR identity, and start to look for these patterns of life, right? Where does a person go? What buildings do they enter? What restricted spaces do they enter? How can we optimize that through space planning? How do we stage equipment better for asset utilization purposes? If I put my chief medical officer hat on, obviously during a pandemic, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of things are changing. You want to be able to answer the biosecurity question. So that's the third security hat. We've converged physical and cyber, but now we've got a biosecurity obligation as well. So all of these things can say, hey, let's look at total business process through the lens of identity, and use that as a catalyst for kicking off digital transformation if initiatives aren't already in place.
One of my biggest challenges in one of the organizations I was with was doing background checks and doing recurring background checks, especially for people with elevated accesses to different systems and data. Culture is just so important. I'm a technologist. I've always been a technologist, but we've been talking about this for a long time, that the cultures within an organization, between the different groups that we're talking about here, they're so different. I think CEOs and boards intellectually understand that, but they haven't yet fully embraced the fact that they have different cultures within their organizations that they haven't really learned how to blend together yet.
I do think there's a huge opportunity going forward for security and HR to work together, especially security, to approach this as a way of shaping and managing the workforce. When we start having really good data about who's where, when they're where, how they're interacting, tying that with things like engagement data, productivity data, and really thinking about how we optimize the use of space. So I could imagine, for example, bringing in data on like weather patterns, commuting patterns, and saying, look, there probably is an optimal time to have meetings, and it probably isn't when people think it is. There's probably an optimal place to locate office buildings that we could start looking at to find out, we move these. We're going to a much more flexible world, and I think AI and ML, as we're feeding more data that combines these three things, people, the kind of work they do, and the space they're in, it changes the whole role of this collaboration between HR, facilities, and security to become much more of a proactive management function as opposed to a prevention function, which is, I think, maybe not the way it likes to be thought of, but largely what it was about before. It's been more about stopping things as opposed to creating things. And I think that's a real powerful shift for this field, that this technology enables to get us the data so that we can recognize these patterns to be a lot more active in shaping the future of organizations.
The opportunity to combine security and HR to shape the future of our workforce is now. As our experts stated, this is about showing trust and transparency, embracing culture, and it's about security and HR becoming more of a proactive management function versus a preventative one. From Group 337, in collaboration with AlertEnterprise, with special guests from SAP and Critical Infrastructure, thanks for watching The Future of Security in HR.